Have you ever seen this video? Over a decade ago, Valve commissioned Weta Workshop to build them a full-size level 1 Sentry. Now, the video is short and barely showcases the Sentry in action, but I've wanted one ever since. Now, thankfully, ThinkGeek actually made a miniature replica Sentry kit that you could build at home and... Oh no, sorry. I'm just getting word now that ThinkGeek never did that, and they went out of business. But where they failed you and the world, I'm on a mission to fix things. And the first step on my journey to full-size Sentry domination starts here. So, say hello to my little friend. This is my mini Sentry. There aren't many like it, and this one is mine. And I should add that this video isn't a tutorial, and the design isn't particularly easy to build or cheap. But I can give you the files for free, so I do hope you try and make and modify it to your heart's content. But before we go any further, I've got a confession to make. I'm not perfect, and neither's my mini Sentry. I mean, we've got visible screws, an exposed motor and gear, incorrect paint scheme, the siren light's oversized, and it doesn't actually shoot people wearing blue shirts. But, you know, I'm still pretty happy with it, so let me show you its features.
Now, every engineer knows that a Sentry requires metal, and mine is no different. You see, the model is top-heavy, and while my model is mostly 3D printed, I designed the legs to include steel plates to balance things out. Really get that center of gravity as low as it can go. My design incorporates 8 laser-cut steel plates, 2 for each hind leg, 1 for each undeployed foot, and a thinner bent piece for each front leg. The design is symmetrical to keep things simple to assemble and also make things cheaper. I don't have a machine capable of cutting steel, so I ordered these parts to be laser cut by SendCutSend. The drawings I made are included with the files, so you can order the exact same parts with a discount. Thanks, guys. The design has some relatively small features that are under a lot of stress, so having steel components means it's seriously over-engineered, but I like it that way. Now, aside from the quick connect magnetic front feet and ridged heels for extra traction, I don't have much else to say about the base, and the real action takes place in the turret portion anyway, so let's pop that on. In order to attach the upper turret to the base, I designed a hexagonal peg in the bottom of the turret that mates with the hexagonal bore in the top of the base. They're locked together by a quick release pin so I can disassemble the Sentry for storage or repairs more easily. In order to let the mini Sentry scan back and forth, I've added a Dynamixel servo with a small pinion that mates with a larger gear on the central axis of the body. This gives the smaller servo the extra torque to move the chunky turret. This is obviously not how the mechanical design of the Sentry works in-game, but it made more sense to have the pan motor mounted externally for now. I wanted to keep the base purely mechanical, so there are no electronics in it at all. In a larger Sentry, I would have probably incorporated the main panning motor in the central body, but in my mini Sentry, I have a structural steel shaft that kinda gets in the way. Now, in order for the mini Sentry to look up and down, I have another servo mounted inside the forward housing. This time, the servo is directly coupled to a shaft, and that shaft is fixed to the outer bracket. The other side of the housing has a bearing and a shaft with a little lever arm. Since the weight of the turret body is unbalanced, I've spring-loaded it to tilt forward to help offset the weight of the rear housing. And next to the tilt mechanism, you can see a servo attached to a rack and pinion. This drives the mechanism for the barrel to emulate recoil. The pinion is screwed to the servo horn, and the rack is screwed to the rear of the barrel. The barrel itself rides on 2 shafts that rest in 2 linear bearings. Now, my mini Sentry doesn't have a firing mechanism, but I did leave a 9mm bore down the barrel. It's too tight for Nerf darts at this scale, but you could probably cram an airsoft mechanism in there. And in order to complete the mini Sentry, I needed a few lights. For the main light on the front, I went with a 10mm red LED, which scales pretty nicely with the design. I also added a laser diode inside this little port for aiming. But what really sets the Sentry apart is the siren light. My model originally started off as a scale level 1 Sentry, but once I decided to turn it to a mini Sentry, I had to add the rotating siren light. Rather than design and build the translucent cover and reflective dish myself, I just stole them from a cheap light I got off Amazon. I designed my own custom base for the mechanism and added my own gearing, since the original mechanism was driven by a series of belts and pulleys that couldn't be easily swapped over to the new base cup design. I also modified the original rear cap to have an indentation so that the siren light was at just the right tilt. While the game model has duct tape holding everything together, I did 2 screw holes in the cap so that I could bolt the siren on and easily remove it without worrying about the tape having to actually hold anything. With the siren secured, the mini Sentry is complete. Or is it? No, I mean, it moves, but I want it to be interactive. And I'm not going to leave you empty-handed, literally, because I didn't just make a mini Sentry, I also made my own Wrangler. It's a little bit different. We're missing some aesthetic details like the wood grip, and I've also added a power switch, light, and charging port at the rear to make it easier to use. But it wrangles all the same. Both the Mini Sentry and Wrangler have an ESP32 and are talking via ESP now for that real-time wireless control. So you can point and shoot your little heart out.
Now, if you want to know more about the design details of my Mini Sentry, then I have an entire separate video that breaks down the CAD in a more detailed way. And if you are interested in CAD or 3D modeling in general, then I'm really excited to talk about this little guy right here. This is the Space Mouse Wireless by 3D Connection. And it is a computer peripheral that allows you to simultaneously rotate and translate in all 6 degrees of freedom simultaneously. Now, if you're not a 3D modeler, that might not sound impressive, but in any 3D modeling software, you need to constantly change your perspective. And while you can use your mouse and keyboard to do that, you can't do everything simultaneously, which means you're wasting more time. Now, I've been using the Space Mouse Wireless for over a month. 1, I haven't charged it at all, so battery life, awesome. 2, it's so ergonomic and intuitive that I keep trying to use it in other pieces of software once I'm done modeling because my muscle memory has just become that strong. I mean, when are we finally going to get Unix-based operating systems with 3D GUIs? It's been like 30 years. I don't know, but I do know that I genuinely love my Space Mouse Wireless and I use it every day. So I really hope that you check it out via the link in the description because you'll have a lot of fun. And if you are worried that they don't support it, well, they support over 224 different pieces of software. So chances are your modeling program is in there somewhere. And if you're watching this video before November 15th, 2024, then you can save 10% off your next order by using the code Mr. Volt, of course. Thanks again to 3D Connection for sponsoring this video. And as always, thank you to my supporters over on Patreon. You guys really are amazing. And special thanks to Adam759. You really are a hero.
Ain't that a cute little gun?